Hello, Professor. My name is Ziaudullah. Today, my topic is Machiavelli and power, the metaphor of the lion and the fox. This is the topic that I'm going to talk about today. Okay. Political power has always been an important topic in political world, and many thinkers have tried to understand how how leaders keep the government stable in order and more, right? And one of the most influential thinkers who analyzed power was Niccolo Machiavelli, the man that we're gonna talk about today. And there was this book that he wrote, The Prince. In this book, he explains how rulers gain and maintain authority. And there is this famous uh, idea from his work, the metaphor of the lion and the fox. All these things are gonna be covered today. First, before diving into his book and metaphor, let's talk a little bit about who he was and stuff like that, right? Okay, he was an Italian political philosopher and diplomat, uh, and he was born in Florence in 1469, which means he witnessed political instability during the Renaissance, and which was one of the motives, one of the main reasons why he wrote the book The Prince. And he wrote this book, by the way, in 1530, right? So 1513, right? And this man is considered one of the founders of the modern political science. And his ideas focus on realistic political behavior rather than idealistic theories. Power in the Prince, let's talk about his book. The main the main things that he has covered in his book was how rulers gain political power, how they maintain authority and stability, and the importance of effective leadership. He basically covered these topics in his book, and he argues that rulers must sometimes act strategically rather than morally to protect the state. His famous metaphor, right? Prince must imitate the fox and the lion, one of the famous lions in history in political world. These animals represent two different political skills. The lion. The lion represents strength. The lion symbolizes military power, authority, and dominance, ability to defeat enemies, courage, and force. However, Machiavelli warns the lion cannot recognize traps. This means that strength alone is not enough. On the other hand, there is this animal, the fox. It represents cleverness and symbolizes intelligence, strategic thinking, awareness of deception, political adaptability. However, the fox cannot fight powerful enemies. Therefore, cleverness alone is also insufficient leadership. This is why he argues that both are necessary. Power is what leaders need because to confront strong enemies, you have to have strength, and you have to have this ability to avoid traps and manipulation, right? So he thinks that he argues that both skills are important in political world, and he says rulers who rely on either of them, one of them, I mean, are vulnerable to failure. That's what he says. And real world interpretation of it, um, even though this book has been written a lot of centuries ago, it has been used a lot in the political world because it's still important and it remains influential. It remains influential today. Political leaders often must use power to maintain order, apply diplomacy and strategy, adapt to changing political circumstances, which means that you should be strategic at the same time strong. powerful. Criticism of Machiavelli. Even though his work is considered one of the most influential, um, he still has critics, right? Many critics argue that Machiavelli encouraged manipulation politics, focused too heavily on power instead of ethics, and he justifies immoral actions for political success. Yeah, in conclusion, he introduced a realistic perspective on political leadership. He says the lion represents strength and power, the fox represents intelligence and strategy. Successful rulers must combine both qualities to maintain authority. His ideas continue to influence discussions about politics, leadership, and power. That's what it is. Thank you for your attention. And these are the references of the presentation.